So hey everybody out there who's tuning in. Today we've got another Powered by Search webinar. Today's webinar is about AdWords, and we've got some amazing experts joining us today to talk about their best PPC strategies. So first off, we're just going to introduce the guest speakers today. One of the first speakers that we have here is Brad Geddes, and Brad is one of only 2 Google-approved AdWords seminars leaders. He's spoken at, I'd say, more than 60, and you can correct me, Brad, if I'm wrong, more than 60 conferences, 125 sessions across probably several continents, and he's the author of the Advanced Google AdWords. Next, we've got Mike Rhodes. Mike is Australian AdWords guy. His agency, websavvy.com.au, is one of the largest independent AdWords specialist agencies in Australia. He's also the co-author of the Ultimate Guide to Google AdWords. And next here we've got John Rampton. And John Rampton, you know, he was recently named number 3 on the top 50 online influencers by the World of Entrepreneur magazine, I believe it was. Isn't that right, John?
Correct.
And he's been a blogging expert for Forbes, and I think you were also awarded the top 10 most influential PPC experts in the world for the past 3 years. Isn't that right?
Correct. Yep.
And then we've got Terry Whalen. He's the president of Some Digital. Terry has managed search and other online marketing channels that have generated millions of dollars in revenue for his clients. He's founded the digital marketing the firm Some Digital in 2005, and I believe it's in San Francisco on the West Coast there. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Hey guys, well thanks so much for joining us today. And I think what we're going to do is just a little bit of cleaning house beforehand. We want to talk a little bit behind the scenes here. My name's Matthew Hunt. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Powered by Search. Behind the scenes today, we've got Lewis, one of our PPC managers. He'll be answering any of the chat questions. So if you have questions that are going on through the webinar, feel free to put those questions in there. They're also going to choose some of those questions at the end of the webinar that we can open it up and ask some of our guests. And then also we got to give a big virtual high five. You guys can just give a big virtual high five to our guys here who are organizing this event, which is Joel and Goran. They put a lot of work into making sure this has happened. So just some cleaning house as well. This webinar recording will be available March 3rd, 2015. It's going to be on the blog at Powered by Search. And, of course, anybody who's attending it, we're going to email you the full recording and the deck afterwards in case you missed it. Now, anybody out there who also wants to ask a question via Twitter, feel free to use the hashtag PPCwebinar. As you're doing it, we'll find that on Twitter as well. So the agenda, guys, is we're going to start off a little bit around the basics. We want to talk about some of your personal PPC wins and fails, and then we're going to get into some optimization tactics around search, display, remarketing. Of course, we have to talk about quality score when we're dealing with AdWords and PPC. Improving click-through rates, auditing your PPC manager to make sure that they're doing a good job, how to tell. And we want to talk about some best tools. We also have a gift card giveaway at the end of the webinar. We're going to be sending out a survey, and that survey at the end of it is just for attendees to let us know what they liked, what they didn't like, what other future webinars they want. And if you participate in that survey, we're going to pick one winner at random and give them a gift card towards Amazon. I believe it's for $50. So please, at the end of this, stay to the end, fill out the survey, and you might have an opportunity to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So, without further ado, now that we covered some of the cleaning house stuff, let's get into some of the questions that are here. And I thought we should just open it up in case there's some people on the webinar who don't know even what PPC stands for. I thought we could talk about that a little bit. And I'm just going to choose one of our guests here to maybe answer that. I think maybe we'll do that with Brad. Brad, can you give us a good understanding for people who are not on the call? What the hell does PPC stand for?
Sure. So PPC means pay per click, and the easiest way to explain it is something everyone's done. Right? Go to Bing or Google, do a search, and you'll see the sponsored ads on the top of the page, side of the page. So advertisers get to pick which words they want those ads to appear on. Then measure the measure what the returns are for those ads, send a certain pages, and ultimately get customers or some actions from them. But it's the ads we've all seen across Bing and Google time and time again.
Great. Thanks, Brad. I'm going to ask this next question for everybody. I'd love you all to just answer this as we go through, and we'll maybe start from the guest, how to introduce them backwards. So we'll start with Terry. Why do you love AdWords, and why do you love PPC?
I think I love AdWords and PPC because it's such a craft. It's a set of skills, and it kind of feels like I think about it like you're at the controls of an airplane on takeoff or landing. You've got all these levers and dials, all this data to look at. You're also dealing with outside forces, and you know what you need to do. You're not exactly sure how you're going to do it. That's what you're figuring out as you go. So I think that's why I like it.
Cool, man. Those are good reasons to love it. What about you, John?
I would have to say I love it. This goes back to my former years. I was working as a sales guy, and I was picking up the phone and calling every single day, and it's tedious, right? So then I started finding other ways to make sales, and I found AdWords one of the best and scalable ways to make sales online. Because people are already searching. They're coming to you, essentially, which is AKA Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever. They're coming to you for those searches. So if you can put ads in front of them and get them to convert into a sale, lead, or whatever, that eliminates me having to pick up the phone and call somebody who doesn't want my product.
Totally. That's so funny, John. That reminds me of my start. I started in 2007. It was for the same reason. I was a sales guy, and I hated door knocking. And I was like, hey, I bet you someone's online. And I got a buddy of mine to build me a website, and I bought The Definitive Guide to Google AdWords by Perry Marshall and learned how to do it, and I was hooked. I've never looked back since. So I hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
Mike, what about you? What do you love about PPC? Why do you do this? Are you crazy?
It is addictive, isn't it? I love the word Terry used, the craftsmanship. It is this very interesting blend of art and science. 3 words for me: measurable, scalable, predictable. It is the single greatest direct response machine ever built. If you can build a business on paid traffic, you're good to go. You can scale that business. You know that you can build that. And the measurable factor of it, I think that's why very, very early on when I started, I chose this path rather than, say, the SEO path, which just seemed harder to me. It was voodoo and black magic how those guys did what they did 10 years ago. So I love the measurable nature and the data and the ability to get into the numbers, and the fact that we can then use all of that to predict the future and to keep scaling this thing. It is addictive, but it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you're so right. I love that you can measure it too. I think that's a beautiful thing that you can scale it and measure it so well. Brad, I know you're up last. You got to come up with something that these guys haven't said yet. Why do you love PPC?
Sure. So for me, it's easier. I love being creative. I've done stuff in radio and TV and so forth, and a lot of times you don't get to measure it. So now you get to have fun creating something and seeing your ideas come out. Except you get to then see the math and says, oh, that was great, that was bad, let's refine it. So to me, it's the combination of using the fun side of the brain, right, to come up with new ideas, but then also a way of truly telling, was this a good idea, a bad idea? How does this look in the big scheme of things?
Yeah. So true. Guys, I'm sure there's some people out there, and they're thinking this, and I don't know if you believe in this or not, but is doing AdWords or doing, paid search ever not right for a business or a company? Why don't we get, and we get a couple answers on this, because I think that you'd all have really interesting input around this, and I'd love to, even if there's a little bit of a debate, if we disagree, that'd be great. But why don't we start with John? John, is PPC ever not right for a business?
All the time. There are lots of businesses that it's not right for. You just have to kind of try it, in my opinion. There's some businesses that it will do very, very well on, other businesses that it will not do it'll just not do anything on. And I think it's just going in, jumping in, and really giving it a test. putting a decent budget to it and saying, hey, I'm really going to give this a good test and see if it works. I mean, at the end of the day, if it does not make money for you and you're not getting other worth out of it, you can't make that work. So.
Yeah. Anybody feel differently? Does anyone on the panel 100% disagree and says, you know what, it's always right for any business?
So I'll offer something different though, right? I think it's a business model problem as opposed to PPC problem.
Correct.
Right.
For one company who they sold individual screws and nails online, you could really check out for 5 cents. You know what? That's never going to work. And so any business, if they redo their business model, paid search should probably work for, but that's a business model thing to overcome from, as opposed to does PPC work or not work. Right? You get a good business model, it'll work. You have a business model that doesn't scale, it's not going to work.
I have a slightly different take on that.
Cool. Let's hear it.
So yeah, my take would be, I think the beauty of search is user intent, either implied, implicit or explicit user intent. And I think there are a lot of interesting businesses, and especially in California near Silicon Valley and tech. But there are a lot of interesting businesses that might have really good business models, and their model is proven. Lifetime values are very healthy, et cetera, et cetera. But no one is raising their hands because they don't know about this business. They don't know that they need or want this thing. And in that case, I think the wrong answer is to never test search. I think it's always the right answer to test search, like John said. But I think sometimes search just will not work until something changes, either that service becomes more widely known through the press, or a category reaches more maturity so people understand to search for it. Fortunately, PPC doesn't have to only cover paid search. PPC could still cover things like Facebook advertising, where we can target a certain audience if search doesn't work.
Or remarketing. Yeah. I think the other thing that needs to be thrown in there is where is the benefits of where remarketing can help so many businesses, where before, yes, certainly search would have been shaky, and even display, unless you had a big budget, if people aren't looking for your display, is generally a very good option. But remarketing is probably changing that a little, where it's hard to see many models where remarketing is not going to work, as long as the economics works, to Brad's point.
Right. And maybe could you just expand real quick, just in case we have a couple listeners on the call who don't even know what remarketing is, just a quick, one-liner so that they can follow along in case they don't know what you're talking about?
For sure. Remarketing, so remarketing, marketing again too. So people that come to your site, for the sake of argument for now, you tag them and then you follow them around. You stalk them, basically. You follow them around the web, show them.
Well, good remarketing is they don't notice that you're stalking them, I think, if they notice.
My favorite line, you want to follow people the way the FBI follow people, not the way the creepy guy at the end of the road follows people. When the FBI follow you, there are 10 guys in a helicopter and you don't know you're being followed. That's how to do remarketing properly.
Right. Well, those are all great answers, guys. Let's go into the next question here, which was, I think that this is always really telling, is what was your biggest and best or most favorite? I mean, it doesn't have to be your best, but what was your most favorite win with a campaign or an ad group or something that you did around, PPC? And it doesn't have to be in AdWords. It could be on Facebook or Bing. Tell us, maybe share with us, and we'll go through each of you. Why don't we start with, Brad, and then we'll go into someone else after that. I'd love to hear each of your wins.
Sure. So, our biggest win is AdWords is just part of it, but essentially, we're with a company with about 250 telephone staff individuals, and we could track how long the wait times were on the phone and how many of the reps were actively in a call versus not, and then I integrated that right back to bid management, active campaigns. And if phone wait times broke 30 seconds, the bids got lowered. If they were less than that, bids were raised, right? And did positional bidding live based upon telephone times. And that was a lot of work, but it was amazing how well it still works today.
Wow, my hands go down to you for that. That's incredible. I've never even thought of doing something like that. That's insane. You're
And that's why
connecting
we
bid
call Brad
management adjustments
God.
based on how people were on the phone and how busy the phones were. Crazy. Okay. Okay, good luck following up with that one, guys. How about Mike?
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, follow God and come up with something smart. My favourite was probably just totally the other end of the scale. Small business who came to us and basically said, save us, save our business, because this other mob has been running PPC. We are completely reliant on PPC. Not a good idea, by the way, to be reliant on one channel, but they were about to go out of business. They were about to close the doors and fire 10 people. And within 4 weeks, we chopped 40% off that CPA, improved it a little bit from there, and they're still trading. And I love the business of business. I love the fact that there's not many people willing to take the responsibility for their financial future and to go out on business by themselves and to say, yep, I'm going to go do this. And so to be able to help someone like that stay in business, that was a good day.
That's brilliant. I bet you all of us have had those moments, and I hear you loud and clear. That one touches my heart a lot too. John?
Mine is very similar to Brad's, not quite as cool, dang it. But we built one that tags to weather.
Oh, yeah.
So, as weather gets colder, we 10x the bids and 10x the budget, and as it gets warmer, we take it down and do it for the other side. This is a heating and plumbing client, and it works wonders. And the competition can't figure it out. So hopefully none of you all are the competition. So,
yeah, we did that one too.
It works very well.
Yeah, that one works really good, John. We did that one before too. What we did it with was for basement leaking and waterproofing. So every time it rained, turn on those ads, because the clicks are like $22 per click.
Yeah.
Really competitive. And then turn them off when it wasn't raining, because if it's not raining, people don't give a shit. They're not going to fix it. But as soon as their basement's flooding, they want the guy to come and fix it, right? So it works really well. That's a great tip and a great win. Terry, you're up next. You want to tell us what your best AdWords or PPC win?
Yes. Oh my gosh, mine are so amazing. Now I have two. I have two quick ones. One is one's from a few years ago. I was working with a large competitor to StubHub, and we were spending about $500,000, or I was managing about $500,000 a month in paid search spend. And within 2 months of taking the account over, I decreased the number of keywords by 95%. I increased the number of converting keywords by 100%, and I increased revenue by about 50%. While keeping ROAS flat. Wow. So, of course, we only have these great case studies when something has been really managed in a subpar fashion before. So thank God for that. And a more recent one was for a SaaS company, not enterprise B2B SaaS, but still SaaS. And in 6 months, I had worked very closely with the owner of the business, who's awesome. And we have doubled the number of paid monthly accounts while decreasing the cost per paid account by about a third or so.
Wow. So did these guys send you on a little private vacation? Did they,
They should have.
they should have, right? Big bonus should have been tied to that.
That's right.
I have had that before. I've had a client send me a postcard from Switzerland, we're in Australia, saying, awesome work this year. Thank you so much. Really? You bastard? Where's my invitation?
All right.
At least a dinner or something, right? Come on.
Yeah. Thanks for getting me here. He's a lovely guy.
Okay, so on the reverse side, guys, we talked about our, all our wins and how amazing we are. But what I find is more impressive that we learn from is where we suck balls and where we lost it. So tell me about your worst fail, and let's be honest here. I really want to hear it. Don't sugarcoat it. And we'll go backwards this time. We'll start with Terry. Let's hear about your worst win. What was your biggest lesson with AdWords or PPC?
Well, let's see. I think one of the ones that stung the worst was I was managing, and we still have this client, thank the good Lord, a children's educational learning company, and we had a lot of conversion data on a daily basis, and our PPC bids were they tended to be small, like say 20, 30 cents. I misbid a single keyword, a single high volume keyword.
Oh,
I didn't come back for just a couple days.
Oh no!
And my budget caps were not set, the way they really should have been as stopgaps, and I wasted $6,000 of the client's money that I then had to refund to the client, which of course I wanted to do, and that's probably one of the ones that stung the worst.
I think it's probably happened to every PPC agency at some point, something along those lines. It hurts when that happens. What about you, John? What was your fail?
Same client. I had set up that magical thing, but I set it up backwards in the beginning. took me about 2 weeks because their account sucked anyways. So I was like, but it took me 2 weeks to figure out that I had set it up backwards. I mean, literally, their account just kept plugging along like it would, and then I'm like, oh my word, like it was one of those like, don't tell anybody, like all the other guys in the office will make fun of me. That's funny.
That's great.
That's good. All right, Mike, down under. What did you do over there? Who did you hurt?
All the way down here. I not sounding like a total wanker. Struggled to come up with an answer for this, but there's a couple. One is taking on the wrong client that sells the wrong product, and helping them proliferate their idiocy in the world. That was a mistake. And expectations. I think that's where we failed the most. Is where we've really failed to understand the client expectations properly before the start. And then 2 weeks later, I've walked in for the meeting, and he said, "So what's going on? I've hired 3 extra phone people, and we're only up 30%." And okay, right. You thought I was going to 10x your business in a week.
Right.
Not going to do that.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. Client expectations is huge, and it really is an epic fail when you don't set it up right. We've all learned that one probably the hard way. Brad,
or you do great work and then they fire you.
Yeah. So mine's kind of like Terry's. This was back in the days of Overture, for those of you remember Overture. And we bulk uploaded an education client who had a $10,000 monthly budget. But back then, you didn't have to put budget caps. It was optional. So, we bulk upload the account. It's late at night. Go home for the evening. Come back the next day, and they've already spent like $5,200, right, in the course of 12 hours. That was one of those. All right, we need to fix some stuff here. Luckily, it converted, which was good. But it's still that expectation set of 30 days of budget. Maybe not.
Right.
Yeah.
I was testing, and I've just showed you how much more money you could make.
Well, that's true. Actually, that sounds like a happy accident.
Not when you've got companies, though, who do their marketing budgets yearly or quarterly, right? They can't take advantage of it. Education, they move so slow.
Yeah. So, guys, let's go on to the next question, which I think we can get into a little bit more of the maintenance and making accounts better, around optimization. But let's talk about some of your top, PPC optimization tactics for search campaigns specifically. We'll get into retargeting, remarketing, and display later, but let's just specifically talk about search. Let's start with we'll start with John. John, do you want to maybe just give us a couple of your top optimization tactics, the ABCs, or what you always do no matter what?
So, top optimization is, for me, is just going back to the basics. Checking in on your account, making sure it's performing, just going, literally back to the basics. You remember the basics on your account, and pretty much your account's going to perform. Changing your ads, optimizing, pulling keywords out that aren't working, putting in negatives, stuff like that. I mean, some additional things that I've used is scripts to help with this. I've gotten really into AdWords scripting. If you can build a script that, you know, if I ever repeat a task 5 times, I will build a script for it. And knowing how to do that will save you just so much time. It also makes you look very, very active in your account, and you look like a baller. So, which really helps, you know.
So when I go through the history of your accounts, I'm not going to see nothing's been touched for 6 months, basically, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. Oh, he was working
every 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, he was working at 2 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
Man, he is working hard on this. But really, it's telling the system what to do, when to do it, and you know. When something's working really, really well, tell the system to pull it out, put it in its own thing, and really bid that up and start making them a lot more money. And, you know, that's really, I mean, scripts is something that I highly recommend to people, is learn how to do them.
Good tips. Mike, I mean, you take over probably a lot of accounts from other, you know, PPC management companies or agencies who are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing probably. What do you find are like 1 or 2 of those things that you're always fixing, the most common things to just kind of get it up to speed?
That's a great question, because what I was going to say with scripts, love automation, but if you automate shit, you just get automated shit. So you can't automate too early when you're taking over something that isn't very good. For me, it comes down to structure and the way the account is segmented. If you can get that right and get that foundation laid, then you're going to be in a very good place. And then probably from there, the ongoing one that would be the biggest for me is looking at the search query report and really understanding who you're actually showing ads to, because that may be different, especially if you're starting out with PPC. That may be different from what you thought, depending on the way you've got your account set up. So looking through that list of terms that have actually triggered your ads and then adjusting based on that. That's probably one of the main areas of optimization, I would say.
Cool. Well, listen, those are some really good tips. Let's go on and talk a little bit about the display in the same kind of way. You know, you guys take over a campaign, and maybe we'll ask Brad this, and you're looking at the display campaign. What are some of the misses and that you find other agencies just not hitting that you do right away that instantly improves the display campaigns?
Well, the most common miss on display is letting your ads run within mobile applications. Right, mobile apps don't convert; they're terrible. It's easy to fix, unless you're selling an app or a game. But most people aren't. Right. That's an super easy win. Just getting an idea of how they've set up display, what their real goals are, and then what sites are really doing well and not. And then we do a lot of ad test contrast on publisher sites. Because you'll see this site's a white background, and a white ad does better, or a black ad, even if it's the same message, right? Contrast matters a lot.
That's a really cool tip. That's a really cool tip. So basically what you're saying is you actually look at some of the sites that you're targeting, you know, the specific URLs that you're targeting on the display network, and you'll actually look at their websites and then change your creative based on the design of the website to make it stand out a little bit more, so that you can get more clicks. Or
blend in, right? That's the test, right? Sometimes blending in works better. Sometimes standing out works better, right? So the test is, what are our top, 20, 50, whatever placements, depending on budget size. Say, all right, what is their color? Do we go high contrast, low contrast, blended, and essentially figure out what ad format looks and as you're getting through what the message itself really is.
Have you ever noticed any kind of pattern, like is it, you said sometimes it's blending in, sometimes it isn't. Do you find that it's more so, since it's display, that you're trying to stand out, or any, no?
I think this is one of those times that Hangouts just sort of wonked out. I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah, that's okay. What I was asking was, you were talking about optimizing, creative right to the ads, the ad placements that they're at. And I was just wondering, have you noticed that you did mention sometimes it was about blending in, sometimes it wasn't about blending in with the ads. It was about standing out and making your ads or your creatives pop. Do you notice that it leans one way or the other? Did you notice that blending in works better, generally speaking, or trying to stand out works out better?
So it depends on the publisher, right? So for well-read blogs, often blending in works better. on a site like New York Times or something that is more advertisements are part of the site, right? Then usually standing out works better. I mean, these are large generalities, but it usually does kind of depend on, are users there truly reading the content and then blending in, right? Almost like it's native, but it's not.
Right.
Versus and sometimes you want it to be an ad, right? Sometimes you're like, you want it sent out, so you're clicking this because it's an ad, right? We're not tricking you into clicking something you think is a link, and so
right.
sometimes you actually want to take it the direction as well.
Right. Those are really insightful. Just real quick before we move on to the next question, which I want to ask to Terry, is, you mentioned the word native as a native ad, and I'm just worried that some people who are listening, they just might not know what that means, the difference between sort of like a traditional banner ad versus native ads. Could you maybe just explain that real quick, Brad?
Oh, sure. Well, native has like a bazillion meanings right now, unfortunately. So there is no native. I mean, everyone's got native ads these days, right? In my meaning, native really is it blended to the content? Like you've got advertorials, right, which are native. And are they part of that, or are they really a standout? I mean, native, though, has a lot of meanings these days, and so it's actually a bad choice of words to use, as opposed to blended content versus, standing out content.
Okay, cool. Terry, I got some questions for you. I'm going to keep going here. Just keep trucking on because I know I got a bunch more questions that we got to get answered. And we're about halfway through the webinar already. I can't believe it. But I wanted to ask you some of the same questions, but about remarketing and retargeting. What are some things when you go into an account for the first time that you apply, right away that usually works really well for you?
Yeah. So let's see. When we talk about setting expectations, I kind of do like to remind everyone, clients, that remarketing is it's totally cool. Everyone should be doing it. Check the box. There's no reason not to do it. But it's never going to be that cool because your total audience are people who you've already brought to your website. So just in terms of setting expectations, it's usually kind of an incremental addition to your overall, PPC program. But maybe the three things that might be most important in my mind are, number one, if you can have some sort of a unique offer or a unique call to action, not exactly the same thing that everyone would see if they got to your normal landing page or home page. Something that might bring someone in who had come to your website and left without converting. And then maybe the number two thing would be, I usually like to lower frequency caps. I usually think that frequency caps are too high, and users are shown these remarketing ads just so many times, and lowering frequency caps can often improve ROI in my experience. And then number three is probably just to definitely pay attention to view-through conversions, but for us, we're comfortable setting those for a 24 hours. So we want to see view-throughs if the user has converted within 24 hours of just viewing an impression, but not more than that.
Anybody doing stuff with remarketing? I know we've been playing quite a bit around with this lately. Is just having different creatives, obviously even bidding on different demographics. Males versus females sometimes have different needs, or even the buying cycle where we change the creative over a period of time, that if they don't buy, for example, something like, let's say oil changes, you're doing oil changes for a company, they might, they get their oil change, they probably redeem it within, the first week or so, and then they're not going to come back again for another 3 or 4 months. So you can change the creative and the retargeting the way you do it. Do you guys play around with anything like that? Any sophisticated stories around retargeting that way?
Go for it, Mike.
Yeah. I just love the power of analytics remarketing. The ability to slice and dice your market and in all of those different ways, to be able to. It's all about segmenting, right? We got a client that does a lot of ads on Taboola and Outbrain, but the quality of that traffic in terms of conversions way lower. So I want to pull that out. I'm going to remarket to that crowd completely differently, or by gender, or by age, or by time on site, or page depth. There's just so many ways that you can split that out, and so few people are making use of that. I see, and just testing creative, because it's still the hippo or the graphic designer that's choosing one, maybe two ads, rolling that out in 14 standard IAB sizes, but they never actually test the ad. They don't do what Brad's been saying in terms of color and contrast, or the image, or black and white versus color, or hand-drawn versus a photo, or there's just so many things to test there, and the winner is going to be the one that tests the most creative.
So that's a really good question. Do any of you guys have any hacks on how you can test creative faster without even possibly putting it on the networks? Do you guys use any tools or crowdsource something to try and get an answer quicker?
So I've tried this many times, and with various ways, right, ranging from Amazon stuff to Plenty of Fish to whatever, and none of them work great. Google's targeting is just, not to give them too much credibility, but it's too good compared to what some of these other networks are. And so your sample size is never correct to like what Google really shows as an audience. If anyone's truly pulled this off, I would love to hear your story.
I look at it the other way. I look at actually testing ads, not necessarily remarketing, but testing display ads in order to affect something bigger down the line. So, we've got a billboard running in the middle of Adelaide, which is from a test on display ads. Which of these 10 display ads gets the best?
That's a really interesting thing. So you're taking some of your clients and saying, hey, you're making these decisions based on the online stuff to make better decisions offline.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh, you have to.
I don't know for sure that that's the best billboard, but hey, I've got data, real data, that says that this ad was 7 times better than this ad. Do you really want to make a billboard that looks like this?
Right. So, real quick, right? Things you can use this ad data for, right? Billboards, great idea. Videos for TV commercials before you commit to it. We actually work with some publishers, and we test the book titles. Because CTR is equal to pull right off a shelf. Right? Yeah. Whenever you need offline data, rapid feedback, Google, $100, $200, right? It's amazing what you can learn for that.
Yeah.
Let alone you throw 10,000 at it, you can use that for some real serious insights that you might be hiring Nielsen or whoever to you're paying them $100,000 for something. You can learn yourself for 5 or 10.
Yeah. It's great. I see people do that all the time too, and we've done some of that where you take dark posts even on Facebook or within Twitter just to figure out titles. What's going to be the better title for your content and for a book as well. Like why wouldn't you take advantage of that before releasing it to the public? It just seems insane not to, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay, guys, let's go on to a couple more questions here, and it wouldn't be a AdWords webinar without us talking about quality score, and maybe we could just ask someone here. Maybe we can ask. Why don't we ask? I don't think we've heard John speak for a little while here. John, why don't you tell people who don't know what quality score is and why it's so important?
It's something you probably shouldn't even pay attention to. It's just a metric that Google by default does not show you so that they can get more money. No, quality score basically, I don't know how you'd even explain it. It's basically how well your ad shows based on keywords. Brad, you could probably explain it a lot better than I could. I'm more the scientific behind it.
Sure, it is an automated opinion by Google to give them a suggestion of how well a user will enjoy your ads and landing page, right? And it's just an automated suggestion in that 10's the best, 1's the worst.
Right.
A lot more details between that, but that's at a conceptual level. It's just their opinion.
Right. And does it matter for people like what's the difference between getting a score of 3 versus getting a score of 8 on your particular keyword that you're bidding on?
Everything. Typically it's how much you pay.
Right. It works down to how much you pay at the end of the day. It costs you more if you have a lower quality score, generally speaking. Would everyone agree with that?
And how often Google want to show your ads?
Yes.
and how often they'll show them, because you could have loss of impressions based on having a low ad rank as well. So it is a pretty important metric, I think, that we all sort of try to get as high as possible. What should people, what should their goal be? Since quality score is out of 1 through 10, what should they be trying to hit?
10.
What's realistic?
10.
So anything under 10, just pause out and get rid of.
Yeah, your brand keywords try to hit 20, and then for all non-brand, just try to hit just 10.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what John and I do.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, I mean, if it's above a 7, you're good. But I mean, try and get 10s on everything if you can. I mean, you won't be able to, but not saying you shouldn't try. I mean, if anything's 5 or below, I mean, I would definitely put some work into those. Try and rearrange them, write specific ads for them, get landing pages that have those dedicated keywords on them. But I mean, really try and get as many in the 7 to 10 range as you can.
The exception, of course, being...
Speaking of quality scores, how would people improve that? Like, I think there's a lot of people on the call today. They're hearing about this, but they don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing or what to look for to be able to improve quality scores. Like, is it the ads, the landing pages? I mean, I'll let you guys speak to that, but why don't we have Terry? Do you want to speak to that a little bit about a couple tips that they could do to improve quality score?
Sure. I think improving quality score, there's nothing that is easier than doing that. Now, if you take it to its extreme, you could do that and really mess up the economics of your AdWords account. So if you're selling red shoes and you don't sell blue shoes, but you have a blue shoes ad group because you believe that people who are looking for blue shoes might actually be really interested in some of your other colored shoes, if you put that you sell blue shoes in the ad, you will definitely increase your quality score. But you might not increase your ROI. So I think it's really important to remember that quality score is not an actual business metric. There's no cost as part of the denominator or numerator or whatever in quality score. Think of quality score, at least for me, I think we like to think of quality score as just Google's reminder to do the basics correctly. And the basics are start with user intent in a query, try to match that up pretty well with keywords for transparency, try to organize like groups of keywords together and have ads that are relevant to the keywords, and then have ads that don't bait and switch. So when a user clicks on an ad, they should come to a landing page. If you said you had blue shoes, that landing page really should be blue shoes. It shouldn't be something different. And there are a lot of instances when you will never have a high quality score if you stay true to your value proposition and to truth in advertising. Your quality score can never be high. And take the example of bidding on competitor keywords. Well, you're not that competitor. You shouldn't be putting that competitor in your ad text. So your quality score is going to be a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or whatever. But it may be the case that that's still a profitable keyword for you. So don't not bid on that keyword. So, and then the last thing I would do to kind of wrap up my thoughts on quality score is I would talk about in my world, there's very, very often an inverse relationship between higher click-through rate ads and conversion rate. So it's very, very often that you can write ads that are friendlier to the click, so they get higher click-through rates, but those users who may otherwise not have clicked, those marginal additional users, they're not the converters. So you'll see a decrease in conversion rate. And at the end of the day, you just want to write the best, most relevant ads that you can that stay as true to your value proposition as possible, that lead to a landing page that has consistency of messaging, and you want to test various ads and figure out ROI, so cost per conversion and number of conversions per 1,000 impressions.
Right. So I mean, and one of the takeaways I think you were saying there was really important that I think you were mentioning that click-through rate is important, really high. However, you could have a higher click-through rate but a lower conversion, and so make sure you're also looking at conversion rates as well too. So not always about quality score; it's about your business and the ROI on your business.
That's right. Quality score is not a business metric.
Yeah, great point. Now we were talking about click-through rates, which kind of brings us, to the next question, next slide there, and maybe we can ask, we know that getting higher click-through rates is generally usually a good thing, not always, but maybe Brad, you can speak to this a little bit. What are some great tips or hacks that people can follow to improve their click-through rates on their text ads?
For number one, treat mobile and desktop separately.
Right.
Most people do not treat mobile separately. Looked at some huge numbers here, and the users' intent are different.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, the top thing to really test is calls to action, right? How does your ad end? What's it end with? And the problem is on mobile, usually your D1, your description line 1, is actually your call to action because Google drops the D2 a lot. On your desktop ad, right, your description line 2 is your call to action. So even treating those as one, your ad, even your exact same text, is different by device.
Right.
So treat them by device and really start with a call to action. Like, what do you want the user to do? And work kind of backwards from there.
Yeah. I've even found on mobile just putting the word call.
Yep. Or mobile friendly.
Call.
Right? We'll just put, display URL, mobile.website. It won't actually be different, but users realize, oh, it's not a site that's going to take 20 seconds to load on my phone.
Yeah, totally. Just putting the subdomain there of that, or the display URL. Even if you don't have a subdomain, just the display URL of mobile a lot of times will improve click-through rates. I've seen that over. Those are good tips as well too. Let me see here. I think, Mike, we haven't said anything. Do you have a couple tips around improving click-through rates on text ads? Something that we didn't hear already?
A new one. The trigger. Really understanding the trigger, the motivation behind. I mean, Terry said search intent, which is pretty much the same thing, but really understanding why they're sitting down in front of Google or Bing today, not next week, not last week. What caused that, and really understanding where they're at. I mean, it's nothing new. It's Robert Collier, understand the conversation already going on in your customer's mind. It's Eugene Schwartz, and understanding their awareness level in your market. It's the big boys have been doing this for 100 years, but really understanding that is going to improve.
I always contribute that to the art part. I've noticed I've worked with a lot of different PPC managers, and some are good with data and some are good with sort of their intuition of understanding intent, but you got to understand that keyword intent and what's really behind it, what problem they're looking to solve to write a really good ad, I think sometimes they're referenced as unicorn ads, that get those super click-through rates.
So here's my hot tip. The person that's going to be an awesome copywriter and the person that's going to create your Excel pivot tables and dig deep in the data, those two skills rarely live in the same brain.
Right.
Have different people for those things if you can.
If you can, yeah. Good tip.
Hey, one thing I would add on the click-through rates. Don't just pay attention to click-through rates. Like, pay attention to conversions and revenue, because I've had some ads that perform extremely well, and they don't bring in any money. So just make sure you're paying attention to your numbers. I mean, you could put free live photos, if you guys get what I mean, and 1 million people will click on it, but it won't bring you anything. Like, it won't do anything for your business. So more important than click-through rate or quality score or anything, pay attention to revenue.
Well, it's a metric that Brad invented, I think, profit per impression. Profit does not show up yet in the AdWords interface, but that's ultimately the metric we should all be focused on.
We're striving to, yeah. Here's a question we got, guys, that I think a lot of people ask, particularly for people, because not a lot of people, I think there's some people on this call that do the management of PPC, but there's probably quite a few people who don't. And sometimes they're just not sure if their PPC manager is doing a good job. How would a business out there easily sort of take a look at their AdWords account and know if the agency they're working with is any good or not? Why don't we start with Terry with an answer about what you would recommend for them to look for?
Well, I'd say probably the number one thing to know if your manager is doing a good job is, are they hitting your primary goals? If they're way far off from your primary goals and they don't seem to have a plan to quickly meet those goals, those CPA or ROAS or whatever goals that they are, then that's of course a big potential problem. And then maybe just a couple more things is the manager, does it seem like this person is transparent? Is this person willing to walk you through the account or any part of the account at any time and explain what's happening and what they're doing? Or does this person dissuade you from logging into the account or never show you screenshots, things like that. So just transparency. And then maybe number 3 would be, does it seem like the PPC manager is kind of carrying the ball forward? You can have weekly calls with your advertiser clients, and you can come up with good ideas, and then a lot of times the follow-through might not be optimal. And so, you know, does the PPC manager remember what you talked about a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks ago, and is he carrying the ball forward on those things? If you started an ad test, is he remembering 3 weeks later, oh, it's time to look at the results of that ad test?
Yeah, some great tips there on what to look for. We've got about 10 minutes left, guys, if you can believe it or not, and we're about to get into some of the audience's questions. There's some that have come in, and we're sorting through them. We're going to sort of pick a few of them now. If you didn't get your questions answered, you know, be sure to put them in there. We're also going to let you know at the end of the webinar how to get in touch with everybody who is here, so that you'll be able to ask them those questions if your question didn't get answered. But before we get into those questions, this is one of our last questions here, which is, you know, what are your favorite, you know, PPC tools? You know, what are you using today? Are you using bid management tools or other tools to hack it? Maybe each of you could list 2 or 3 of your favorite tools. Maybe we'll start with Brad. What are some of your favorite tools?
Well, I'm kind of required to list Adanalysis, which is our ad testing tool, since I own it, right? And Certified Knowledge, another set, because I own it, right? So I have to list those. But beyond that, right, AdWords Editor is awesome. Google Analytics is a tool. Excel is an amazing tool. Now, I do like, you know, Acquisio if you are a agency, right? Marin's great if you're a huge enterprise brand. But these are still secondary to Excel, Analytics, and the editors. I mean, those are really primary tools.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Mike, what about you? What are some of your favorite tools that you use that might be different than what were already said already?
Yeah, difficult, following Brad again. Again, yeah, you don't need any paid tools. Excel, Editor are fantastic if you're just starting out. Those are great. Optimizer, which is by a guy called Frederick Valles, and thank you, Brad, for putting me in touch with Fred recently. I love Optimizer. We've actually just moved all of our reporting across to Optimizer. We've tried everything, Dash this, Swido. We've built our own tools. I've spent $100,000 building our own tools internally. I've got 2 PHP developers in the Philippines and 1 here in the office. I'm retiring that tool because Optimizer does 90% of what our tool does, and it costs me a couple $100 a month.
Right.
It's unfortunate for the 2 boys in the Philippines who now have to find another job, but
well, hopefully they're not watching right now.
It is a fantastic tool. I'd also give a call out to Mike Kalea for AdBeat for looking at what other display advertisers in particular are doing. That's a good tool. There's lots and lots of paid tools, but you don't need them when you're starting out.
Right. John, what about you? I mean, and we could talk about other tools like, you know, banner tools or research tools or keyword research tools. What other tools do you like to use to help you with your PPC management?
I'm AdWords Editor, Analytics, Excel, and Optimizer. That's all that I use. I don't use anything else. So.
What about you, Terry?
Well, let's see. We use a tool that we built internally, and we host it at the domain that it's the same name, Reportly, and it's a reporting tool. It's just an automated. It's very simple. It's an automated tool that sends you reports as frequently as you want, and with various look-back periods, 7 days, 14 days, 13 days, whatever. And it is a campaign-level trend reporting tool that delivers the data to you in the body of your email. So you don't need to click on anything. You don't need to be logged in anywhere. And it's just formatted nicely. So that's my pitch for our tool. It's completely free. It's at reportly.com. And then the other tool that we use just to kind of keep organized with clients and what's going on with various accounts and platforms is Trello. And so Trello, it's a little bit of task management, but it's task management light. It's more just organization. And it's just got this cool dashboard.
Trello's cool as a project management, or as you're working on things. It's great. We use Teamwork specifically over here, but I still sometimes go into Trello just to keep my day organized. So I love that one as well too. There's a couple of tools that sometimes we use for research. You know, simple things like SEMrush and you know, Moat or what runs where, which are great for trying to find banner ads of competitors. But there's a ton of really cool tools out there.
SpyFu is good too.
Yeah. So guys, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I really want to get some of the audience questions in here. So I'm just going to list off some of those questions that that we have here, and so here's one of the questions that came in here. One of the questions was about ads, and someone wasn't clear about how many ads should I have in an ad group. Someone want to jump in and take that one?
Sure, right. So, I mean, scientifically, right, it really is, you know, roughly 10,000 impressions a month per ad if you can get there. If you can't, just start with 3. I mean, 2 is not that many. 5 is too many. At a general rule, 3 is a great number to start with.
Great answer.
There's another question that came in here, and it was a question about how do you know when to conclude an ad test? I thought that was a great question.
So this is real easy too, right? You have to first list out your minimum statistics, right? What is your minimum thresholds of data? And this is all dependent on data size, right? So minimum of 1 week, month or better if you've got monthly sales cycles, and then run your confidence numbers. But only run confidence once you've hit minimum data. Because it's possible to have confidence numbers that are false positives without minimum.
Right. Anybody else have any other input about when they think they should stop running a test ad?
Well, I think usually the answer is you should wait longer than you think you should wait. Most people, I think take results too early, if we were generalizing. And then, yeah, so Brad's answer is it's the right answer. For us, we sometimes use Google's campaign experiment, AdWords campaign experiments, which kind of builds in statistical significance, which is helpful. Or we just go to, a statistical calculator on the internet and remind ourselves when we have statistical significance. But yeah, definitely never in just a couple days, never.
Right.
Yeah, unless you get the data. I mean, I would say 100 clicks is a good test.
Cool. Great tips. There's a question that came in. This seems like it's got to be from someone who does a little bit of management, anyways, on a PPC account. But it says, how often do you add negative keywords to an account?
As often as you need to.
That was going to be my answer too. So I guess
you got to take the 80. You got to take the 80
keywords. Maybe. Oh, sorry. I think I was interrupted. Maybe some tips about negative keywords.
What do you mean? Like that. One of the.
I mean, my quick tip on negative keywords is, we all love query data, and so that's the place where you mine for negative keywords probably most often and with the most success. And because you can find the queries that users are using that are being matched up to your ads, and you have performance data, so it's maybe more interesting than using the Google keyword tool because you can actually see performance. And the thing you have to remember there, at least in my mind, is that you want to make absolutely sure that when you add a negative, it's truly a negative. Make sure, even if the performance may not look great and you think it's a negative, what if it's the name of a competitor? And actually, CPA might be a little high, but if you treat it well, in its own ad group with a separate bid and the right bid, you might be able to make money off that long term. So for negatives, make absolutely certain that it should be a negative.
And another great tip for negatives is do density analysis across them. Because it's common to see an individual word that it by itself is never shown, but it's been in 10,000 queries, and in an aggregate it's got a large number. So doing density on not just the full query, but on words within queries can give you some really good insights too.
Great tips, guys. So listen, we're just about done for the webinar for the time that we have. Before we go, I wanted to be able to make sure that we can talk about the next webinar that's coming, as well as remind people about the survey at the end of it. But before we do any of that real quick, I thought that each one of you could maybe just give a shout out about how people could get in touch with you if they wanted to get in touch with you. And we'll start with you, Brad. Could you just tell everyone the best way to get in touch with you?
At BG Theory on Twitter. Start there and you can find me anywhere else. Or just search my name. I will come up.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, his name will come up under God. Once again, I'm just going to throw that in 3 times. PPCsavvy.com, that's my training site where I help a whole bunch of PPC managers improve their skills. Mike at PPCsavvy.com will find me.
Great. John, how about you? People want to reach out to you?
JohnRampton.com.
And Terry, how about you? People want to reach out to you and find you. How would they get in touch with you?
Yep, our website is sumdigital.com, and I'm at Terry at sumdigital.com. Sum, S-U-M.
Great. And I was the host for this webinar, guys. My name is Matthew Hunt. I'm the CUA at Powered by Search. And I want to talk a little bit about, our next webinar. Thank you for attending this one, but we have another one next month, and it's about landing pages. It's on March 26th. At 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Feel free to visit the URL of poweredbysearch.com/2015-webinar-series to be able to sign up for it if you're not already signed up for it. We've got some great guests there. And just remember, the rest of you guys, at the end of this, hang in here. There's going to be something that gets posted up, if it's not already posted up, to the chat section about taking a survey. Remember, if you fill out that survey, we're going to pick a random winner, and someone's going to get a $50 gift card from Amazon. Gents, Brad, Mike, John, Terry, thank you so much. I think that we had a great turnout, and people got huge value from your advice. Thank you very much for attending the webinar. You guys have a great and brilliant day. Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.